Under the caption, "This sucks," let me just start off by saying a couple things. RedState hates me. Here's how I know that. One, they made me talk after Daryl Glenn, okay? Now, I remember earlier this week when I was teaching Daryl how to lift weights, he promised I wouldn't have to. The other thing, there was an announcement that drew your attention to the damn ice cream social when I get done talking over the next 2 hours. And finally, is there anything more horrifying than standing there thinking, I'll come up, I'll do a little joke, I'll do a thing, and hearing people say, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio. I can't live up to those expectations. So I guess I just want to talk a little bit about me. No, I'm kidding, I don't. A little more than 4 years ago, just last month, about 10 miles from where we sit right now, a guy who had failed at his neuroscience PhD program, a guy who had failed in the only intimate relationship he had had in his nearly quarter century of life, spent 2.5 months preparing to murder as many people as he could. He accumulated 4 different weapons. He amassed over 700 rounds of ammunition, many of them steel penetrator rounds. He made explosives for his apartment. He cooked napalm and thermite in his kitchen, thermite that he made from rust that he made in his kitchen. And those explosives weren't meant to kill as much as they were meant to deter and distract law enforcement from a theater that sits at about Alameda and 225, not that far from here. And on a cool morning, on July 20th, 2012, 400 people filed into a box-like theater to be entertained. And this one person came there to slaughter them all. Now, when that case happened, when 12 good people, and amazingly, this guy's bullets found 12 of the best, of the brightest, of the future generation. It also found a 6-year-old. You know, that son of a bitch shot her 4 times. 4 times. 12 dead. 70 injured. And I'm here to tell you, by the way, that it's miraculous, that there's some divine providence involved and that it wasn't more. And I may be able to finish up by telling you a little bit about that. But something I've never revealed before is that in the early life of that case that ultimately came to, I think, define my last 3 years, and is the reason that my hair isn't blonder than it is right now. The FBI was there, and they turned out to be great partners in this case. But you know what we found out from talking with the leadership after we got underway was that there were serious discussions at one point between Washington, D.C. and Colorado about whether to try to take this case from local prosecution, to try to use the explosives from inside the apartment to shoehorn some other type of federal charge to make this a federal prosecution. Now, that didn't happen, and that was the right answer. This was a local crime involving local victims in a local place, and it needed to be prosecuted by a local prosecutor. Now, there's a lot about this case that I think has changed the way law enforcement responds to certain things. It has engendered discussions on a lot of different levels. And let me tell you, I'm here to disabuse you of some of the myths of this case if you're willing. How many people recall that the day that this happens, the New York City Police Commissioner, a guy named Ray Kelly, tells the media that this guy claimed to be the Joker when he went into that theater? Who heard that? Yeah, a couple things about that that frustrate me as a prosecutor. One is, I'm not good at geography, but it feels like New York's pretty far away. Like it's not right next to Colorado. And so I begin to wonder, how does Ray Kelly know a dang thing about our case? The second thing is, if you're Ray Kelly and you're in the law enforcement game and you know something, why are you running your mouth to the press about what you think you know. And the third thing, and the most important for this limited discussion, is it's all nonsense. Not true. Never happened. He never said that to anyone at any time, anywhere, not in a journal, not in a chat session, a text, not to any of the psychiatrists that looked under the hood and kicked the tires. In fact, he colored his hair. Do you remember which color? Red. We won't say orange because we love the Broncos, just like Ken Buck said. It was red. What color's the Joker's hair? It's green, right? We got out in trial, but it never gets reported by the media, who loves the salaciousness, who loves the drama. The fact that about 2 weeks before he colored his hair, the guy, his former best buddy that was hanging out with his then girlfriend, that got the girlfriend in the breakup, he colored his hair red too. But that's not a good story to tell. Something else. How many of you heard that he picked that theater because it was a gun-free zone? How many people have heard that? Again, not a shred of evidence to support that. Not any. He never says it. He never references it in his journal, in which he diagrams out the various theaters that he visited in trying to determine which was the best one to kill the most people. Never does it. But I know that that's something that a certain portion of the population wants to think is the reason he picked it. He didn't. He picked it because it was proximal. It was about 4.5 miles from his house, and he felt like he could get done all the planning, all the execution of it, with a little effort. Now, the other part of this thing that I have heard, and you know this because Sandy Hook took place right after this, and you may not know this, but people in Colorado do. Legislature got together and passed some feel-good legislation called Let's Limit the Size of Magazines down to, I can't remember what it was, 20 rounds, 10 rounds, what is it? 15 rounds state. And so what I want to tell you is more Colorado, less DC. More Colorado, less DC. Now, you don't know it from sitting here, but for those of you that are from sea level, you're a mile high. And that's not even about the 16th Street Mall. That is about that. Wait for it. That's about elevation, right? It is harder for you to breathe here. Your cells are working harder. We choose to live in this place because it requires a little more effort, but the payoff is more liberty and more control over what we do. That's our goal. But you don't have to look far in Colorado to see the role that federal government plays. And when we talk about criminal justice reform, and I'm glad General Cuccinelli was up here to talk about this, the single biggest thing we can do for criminal justice reform is to defederalize all of the crimes that local prosecutors that you vote for and control every 4 years prosecute in our neighborhoods. That's the very first and best thing we can do. Yeah, thank you. Let me give you an example. Everything that we hear about at the national level is about this over-incarceration idea, and that the federal government has these draconian laws where if you are caught with crack powder on your sleeve, you go to prison for the rest of your life. Now, that may be the federal system. I don't know. But we don't do that in Colorado. More Colorado, less DC. Here's what happens in Colorado. We overhauled our drug laws. We changed our drug laws so that we don't even call them felonies anymore. We call them drug felonies. We don't want to spend our taxpayer dollars locking up addicts who are capable of being rehabilitated. And so we've gone down that road. We also, in the state of Colorado, we've taken juvenile justice to a different level. Do you know over the last 15 years, the number of juvenile cases filed in the state of Colorado has decreased by 40%? 40%. That's not because of the federal government. That's not because of some great change in the law from even the state legislator. That's because right-minded, locally elected, and accountable prosecutors are making decisions to best represent and protect the communities from which they come. That's the model that we need moving forward. More Colorado, less federal government. Now, there's something else, though, that I do take a little bit of issue with. Have you guys heard, and maybe you agree, we don't need as many mandatory minimum sentences for crimes in general. Gives the prosecutors too much power, too much discretion. Have you heard that? Thank you for admitting that, and you're wrong. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm joking. As a guy, and by the way, the other thing that's special about Colorado, do you know our prosecutors? Only state in the country that has term limits for district attorneys. Only state in the country. There are DAs in Virginia, they call them Commonwealth's attorneys, that have been serving there for 45 years. That's 20 years longer than I've been alive. No, I'm kidding. It's not. It's about the same, but we don't do that in Colorado. In fact, the Constitution says I can have 2 terms. I can run for 2 terms, and then I got to go do something else. Now, if you're someone special like Ken Buck and you're in Weld County and the commissioners fall in love with you, they give you a 3rd term. And that's unfair. I'm just telling you that to your face in front of all these people. That is ridiculous. That makes us different too, because there's a different level of accountability to the people. But let me tell you about mandatory minimum sentences and how they show up in our local paper, and you should look at it today. Do you know that in our jurisdiction, I think at the end of last week, it got reported this week, there's a guy with 6 prior DUI charges, convictions. 2 of them as felonies in Missouri, served 3 years in prison. He gets picked up on our streets in beautiful Aurora at a .235 blood alcohol level. How many people here have ever been at a .235? Well, wait for it. You might want to get there on election day. Just hang on to it. Save it. That is super drunk. I mean, that's the kind of drunk where I couldn't find the car, let alone the car keys. This guy's driving down our roads. Now, Colorado just passed a brand new felony DUI law, but we said we don't trust prosecutors, we trust judges, so we won't include any mandatory time. And guess what happened in our jurisdiction? That guy got probation, not 1 minute behind bars. Now, that doesn't make any sense. Do you know, up in Boulder, in beautiful, uber conservative Boulder, there was a guy who raped a young woman, sexually assaulted her at a party. She was drunk beyond any capacity to consent to anything. He told people he would take care of her, and oh, he took care of her. Took her away from her friends, took her away from help, and sexually assaulted her. Then went to trial, and based on the descriptions given in the paper, acted somewhat smugly, arrogantly, flippantly about the process. But when the jury came back and convicted him, certainly justice would be meted out, and guess what sentence he got? Got probation, straight probation. Now, I was going to tell you a whole bunch of other awesome, funny things. I had some great pictures, but I see the hook coming right here. And you know why it is? Because the ice cream's melting. Can we do this before? And I was going to tell you about all this other great stuff about Colorado, and all, but here's what I want to do. Listen, I am, by day, I get to do stuff like this. By night, I'm just a father of 4, okay? So when I told my wife I was going to be allowed to speak here, she did the same thing she did when I said I was running for DA. She laughed. She said, no, you're not. They're not going to let you get up there and say stuff. Who the hell are you? You know? So I need to take a panorama picture here. I swear to you this won't go on Twitter, because Twitter's bad for me. I'm going to send this to my wife. Can we all just bear with me? I swear there'll be extra toppings. If you can just let me look attractive. Try to look conservative. There you go. Lower taxes, everybody. Oh, boom. My name's George Brauchler. I'm very proud to be here. Thank you, Ken, for helping make this happen. Thank you, sir, for making this happen. Look forward to talking with you later. Thank you.